Hey, it's Katie and Katie
And Katie.
with CB Unlocking Resources for the Neurodiverse. If you have ever had concerns about your kiddo, whether it be related to attention, focus, communication, relationships, fine motor skills, that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about on this channel. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about when we first knew or when we first had concerns with our kids, as far as we needed to do a little bit more digging and diving into figuring out kind of what was going on with our kids.
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of chat about that. And then, as always, if you have questions or if there's things that come up that we don't talk about, make sure you comment in the comments below. So on the next time that we post a video, we can make sure to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, because we will for sure make sure that we're answering any questions that anybody has as far as, sharing our experiences, because the more that we share, the more that all of you that are watching can be more informed. And that's what we're here to do.
That's what we're here to do. Yep. So do you want to start with sharing maybe a little bit about what your journey was like for you in the very beginning?
Yeah, I can. Okay. So I have 4 kids, 3 of which are neurodiverse. And I'd say with pretty much each of them, like I knew something when they were still an infant. Like my oldest, when they would get really upset, and I remember the first time, like clear as day, I was nannying and they were crawling around in the people's driveway, and they started headbanging because they got frustrated. And I was like, I literally had to walk over and pick them up because they were just so like distraught in that moment. And from that point on, that's when that behavior started. And it just continued and progressed. And
you'd say that was like before a year old?
Yeah, that was at 9 months.
9 months.
Maybe even like 6 months. Like it was early, and like there would be bruises on their forehead from doing it so much. In that instance, I remember like there was bruises and like their forehead was cut in a couple spots too because they were doing it so much. And that's a behavior that, still now, 12 years later, like still sometimes happens, that headbanging. So I think now looking back on it, like that's a sensory seeking behavior of like they're so dysregulated in that moment that they don't know how to regulate. And so that's one of the things that they do to self-regulate. And then another one that
really connected to like big feelings.
Yes.
And not knowing how to manage or cope with them is kind of when you see that behavior.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Like not knowing, like a transition, or like not getting a special toy, or not getting a drink, or not getting a whatever thing that they wanted at the time. And it was like, or just having an undesired or an unfulfilled need that was met.
Or an undesired feeling even.
Yes.
Right? Like if a seam on a sock is in the wrong place.
Yep. Okay. And then with kiddo number 2, there were definitely like some earlier signs. One that I remember doing is, so I reached out, there's a really amazing program here in Minnesota where we're located. It's called Help Me Grow. So you call that number, and it's like the school, like the special ed school, you do an intake. And I did that because that kiddo was not crawling, and it was like 6 or 8 months, something like that. And they weren't crawling. And so we had like a special ed educator come out to our house, and a speech person and an OT, and the OT person gave me some exercises to do, and I started doing those, and that was amazing. And then that summer we were outside, and literally, like you sit outside on the grass with your kiddo, would not do it. Like you'd literally like put them down on the ground, and then like feet would go like way above their shoulders, and like every single time, I mean like half an hour, like I even have like the first time we tried doing this with my mom, like on video.
And so sensory again.
Yes. Super sensory, that type of stuff. They also spoke like insanely early. So like we had OT come out, had that Help Me Grow intervention, started the crawling stuff, But a month later, they were talking. And by the time they were a year old, like 3-word sentences.
Wow.
Like we went and he started daycare, like an in-home daycare. And he was started right before he turned 2. And we had other parents arguing with us that, you know, when he was, you know, he was like a couple weeks shy of being 2 when we started, and they were arguing with us about what how old they were, because they're like, oh no, he's like 3, and we're like, no, he'll be 2 like pretty soon, you know, he's gonna be 2, and they're like, no way,
Right.
you know. So that was one, and then there was another big milestone I remember when they were 3, like constantly moving, jumping, spinning, like just going, you know. And it was like, you know, like even our family doctor at the time was like, well, whenever you want to get him diagnosed with ADHD, like you just let me know. And
We see
like,
that.
We're like, we know he's going to pass that with flying colors. So
right.
like not a big thing at all. You know, because it wasn't something that was interfering with our lives, you know.
Right,
I
it
mean,
was
like,
big energy, but it was okay.
Yeah, it was big energy, but not the like big energy with the behavior side of it.
Right.
You know, like the behaviors that we saw were the more sadness and the sensitivity to things, and the sensitivity to, like, you know, the tags in your clothes, or like the cut grass, or loud noises, the hair dryer, you know, the hand dryer at the bathrooms.
Yes.
Thank goodness they're starting to get rid of those. Oh, those are I could go on a video, and I'm sure you could. Like, we could have a video just about the stinking hand dryers in restrooms. Like, oh. Okay, so that's 2. And then our third kiddo noticed stuff right away. They had some more classic signs. So right around a year, there was, we had like a 3-week span where there was the stop of speech, like nothing. No eye contact, no engagement anymore. Like that really stopped. Like not looking at books, not doing anything, would constantly like line things up.
So was that scary for you when that happened, or did you kind of know, like, this is potentially one of those signs?
No, I knew right away. I was like, red flag. Yeah. And so like the day that started happening, I told my husband, and I took pictures of it even.
Okay.
And I was like, look, like, and there was toys all around them, and it was like lines here of like this thing color coded to lines here this way color coded, lines here of this type of toy color coded. So it was like major. Okay. Major. And again, like I called Help Me Grow. I'm talking to the intake person, and I was like, this is not my first time. Like these are my signs. These are my checklists. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I was like, yeah, so when can you get somebody out? They're like, well, I think they expedited it. And like, because he was not even a year old at that point in time, they came out, qualified for services, like, and like all the areas that you could qualify, it was like done. Qualified. Yeah. So then we started getting some help there. But then what's so weird about it though is then they came out 2 months later to our house to get stuff, and it was like a completely different person. And even everybody that was there the first time was like, it is like a different kid. And so I think for that person, there's lots of masking that can happen. And even at that early age, there was that ability or that learned way to mask what was going on. Yeah. So and very smart. Right. So smart. Super smart. Super ridiculously like and aware. Your brain smart. Yeah. And so aware of what's happening in the world around him. Yes, like you can't get anything by. Like you would think like, oh, you're off over there playing. Nope, like realizes everything. Like, oh, somebody's here. Somebody you just walked by. You know, and then really smart with numbers. and like pre-reading skills already. Like I would not be surprised if we're reading. So we just turned 4, and then we already know our letter sounds and the letter names, and can write about half of them, and can one-to-one count up to 20. And mind you, like we've been in like pandemic mode, so this person has not had any like outside preschool or anything. It's just like the little bit of like school with mom that we do. We call it school. you know, but like we can sound out words. Also, like the other day we wanted to watch the show Franklin, and I was like, okay, let's sound it out, and I made the letter sound like. Did the whole entire thing, like told me what letter corresponds with it. So
Well, and even like today when we were driving the Power Wheels, and we were trying to help him steer it, and it was his first time, so we didn't really know what he was doing. And if we said go right or go left, that seemed to make sense to him. But if we said turn this way, it didn't.
Yes,
I know. He was right and left.
Yeah, and that's so weird because last week he was trying to unscrew something and couldn't, and I taught him righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And since then, he's been able to figure out what his rights and lefts are. Where, you know, his older sibling, who's 7, still like left, right, like what?
What are those?
What are those? You know, so it's just so interesting how like, for me, like I can have 3 neurodiverse kiddos, and it's like. They are completely different, but then also too, like in some ways they're very, very much similar, which is just so intriguing to me that like your gene pool is the same, and right. Like this is what I get, you know, like it's just so fun, and I get
fun.
I get a lot of joy out of it.
Yeah,
you know, like seeing where they're at, and you know, one thing that I've been doing a lot more of. With my kiddos, especially my younger ones, is doing like play therapy, and doing that little bit of like, we call it special playtime with them, and like doing that with them, and it's a way for me to get into their world, which I think there's just so much benefit behind it, and
super empowering for them.
Yes, and it's a way to connect with them on their level instead of trying to force them to connect with us. Like I feel like there's so many more lessons that we can learn from them if we go into their world versus like trying to make them fit into ours. And that's where like, you know, understanding the stigma and stuff, and you know, trying to stop that is going to be so beneficial.
So, and then what diagnosis, and you don't have to say like for which kid, but which diagnosis have you received at this point with your kids?
So the diagnoses that we've received for the kids are separation anxiety, ADHD combined type, autism level 2 support needs, anxiety, and ADHD. Are all of the diagnoses. Oh, and then something else called social pragmatic communication disorder, which my understanding is what the DSM-5, so the diagnostic book, is now calling Asperger's. So,
or was calling Asperger's.
But now there's no longer Asperger's.
No, it's just autism spectrum.
Autism spectrum, and then there's the social pragmatic communication disorder. So those are all the diagnoses that we've had so far.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
That's a lot. And she has joy. Like, that's the coolest part, though, because it is really difficult raising neurodiverse kids. And I mean, I'm sure many of you watching this have been following my blog. There's a lot of moments that are not joyous. That is for sure. But there really is so much joy in like seeing one thing make sense, or seeing one piece of happiness. You know, you really learn to find joy in different moments that maybe a neurotypical family doesn't even.
Exactly.
We were talking about that today when we were on our walk.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, because one of your kiddos was like, asked for help on something. And I was like, you know, this is so cool because our kids have learned so much just asking for help. And a neurotypical family would be like, yeah, okay, they asked for goldfish. Cool.
Yeah.
But for us, that's such a big deal that they're able to ask for what they need or what they want.
Yeah, to advocate for themselves in that moment and to be able to, one, you know, say that to us in a way that we can interpret that, so that level of communication there, and then like, oh, it was just
It is pretty cool.
It was amazing.
Yep.
I was like, I'm gonna write that down. And that's one thing that I try to do too, is like I keep a journal of like the good things that happen in the day, because like some days they are hard.
Yep.
Like hard. Like I had one of those hard days this week where I was like, I'm just gonna go walk into my room, I'm gonna set my timer, and I'm gonna give myself 2 minutes to cry, and then I need to go like back and parent them. You know, but yeah. So like especially in those moments, I'm like, I write it all down, so then that way like I can keep track of like, oh, we had that victory this week, and like
it's okay.
I can hold on to that. You know. Yeah. And like you with your blog, you know, like you have a way to do that with that.
Yep, absolutely.
Amazing. I love reading your blog, by the way.
Thank
I'm like,
you.
I get so excited when I get the notification on my phone. I'm like, oh, Katie wrote something. What kind of good things is she gonna say today? Yeah. So speaking of my blog, I have 2 kids. Both are neurodiverse. My oldest is 14, and for him, I think when we first knew, my husband always said something, probably going back to when he was, I'd say early toddler. And he would just kind of say like, he's like not really here. Like you can talk to him and he's just kind of in his own world. And I was just, you know, more the mom, like he's a boy. Of course he's not paying attention. He's got his trucks. And, you know, I chalked it up to being that for so long. And then it was actually when we moved to the cities and he started school up here. And one of the teachers said, you know, like, she's like, off record, I'm not really allowed to say anything, but one of my kids is ADHD. And she said, I really think that he's got some of these struggles, because she said, it's like I'm talking to him and he's not present. And she said, he comes and he goes. And even if he's looking right at me, I think he's really on the moon. And we appreciated that, because I had been in denial, thinking like he's just a boy, not paying attention. So when she said that, we moved forward with reaching out to her pediatrician, and we did, you know, like the big packets they send home to the teachers, and he was diagnosed with, at that time, ADHD combined. And we started medications for him right away, and he did fantastic right out of the gate. The very first med was the right med. We knew immediately when we got to too high of a dose, and we backed it down, and he's been on almost that same dose pretty much ever since. And that was at 8, now he's 14. So we got incredibly lucky with him. So he's got the ADHD combined, and then he's also got a diagnosis of anxiety. Mild. He copes very well. He's a very good student. He rarely studies. Like he does not put a lot of energy into school. He's smart, like,
but he's very smart.
He's very smart.
And we really see the hyper focusing. Like he finds something he loves, and he knows more about it than most adults do. Like so he really does that hyper focusing thing. So I'm thinking with him, it would be back to like, for my husband, he recognized it when he was early toddler. I really recognized it when the teacher pointed it out and was sharing how her daughter was, and then it was like, whoa.
That's reminds me too. So 2 out of my 3 kids have ADHD too. And the ones that do, I remember them being toddlers, and like still to this day, like you can yell their name until you're like blue in the face, you know, like I can yell their name loud, and I can be loud. And
it doesn't matter. They're not.
It doesn't matter.
Present.
They're just like,
no.
You know, so
you have to break the plane. Like, hi.
Like a hi. You know, and they're like, oh,
hi, you're still here.
Or like, I literally, like, there's 2 of them, I literally, like, if I need to get their attention, I have to touch them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just like, you're
not there at all.
You're not there at all.
My youngest is that way. Yeah, so my youngest, this is a much more severe one. So I would say with him, both my husband and I knew pretty loud, all caps, bold, many exclamation points. When it was before a year, I would say around 8 or 9 months, as soon as he became mobile. And also my oldest was obsessed with his baby brother until he became mobile, because once he became mobile, it was like, it's not just like when a baby crawls and they get into everything. He was destructive. Like we couldn't keep him out of things. He was climbing up like cabinets before he could even walk. He was like scaling the house, breaking things. And then when you would try to like stop him, he would like look at you and laugh. Like He thought it was so funny when you would try to stop him from doing things. So then a really big indicator to us that something was really off. We tried doing the timeouts, and this was when it was around 1. He was definitely not potty trained yet because he had a diaper on, and I know he started wearing underwear at 2 because he wanted to potty train super early.
Yeah.
So when he was still in diapers, we put him in timeout, and it was 1 minute because he was 1 year old. And in that 1 minute, he completely destroyed his bedroom, entirely destroyed his bedroom. And he started, while he was in timeout for that 1 minute, he would take his diaper off and he would actually pee and poop in the vents. Huge red flag, because many kids can be in a 1 minute timeout. So we literally would have to open the door like every 10 or 15 seconds to break his thinking and say things like, you're in here because you weren't listening. You're in here because you weren't making a safe choice. You're in here because you were hitting.
Yeah.
So, that's what, if we didn't keep saying those prompts, he would like cycle into these destructive behaviors.
Wow.
So that was a huge indicator. And for us, it was starting to even teeter us on the thinking that it was more than ADHD, because ADHD was pretty much what we knew because it's what we had been through.
Yeah.
But that was a big thing that was like, ooh, like,
yeah,
that seems like a bigger thing. So, and then, we do a lot of things with family. We go camping and we're outdoors a lot. We're at sports with his older brother all the time. Yeah. And our youngest he didn't care where we were. Like, if we weren't in the same building, he didn't care. Zero recognition of safety, of, like, strangers. Hey, what's up? Let's play. I don't care. Like, he was so extroverted. We always called him the class clown. Like, he's going to be the class clown, and he's going to be the one tipping cows and TPing the teachers' houses, not just the kids.
Right?
Because he was just wild. And like his oldest brother would always say, he's going to be so popular because he's funny, he's outgoing, and he's so confident.
Yeah, he is. It's so fun to
see. And the energy became a problem. Like, we love his energy and we don't want that to change about him. But when it becomes hyperactivity, that's very different in my perception, because energy is good. Like, you can contain energy, but hyperactivity is where you're jumping out of your skin, where you can't sit still when you're expected to sit still, where you can't lower your volume, where you're expected to lower your volume. And to me, that's really where hyperactivity is different than energy.
Yeah.
And that's a
great way to explain that.
I love his energy. I don't want that to change about him. That's who he is. And that's what makes him so fun to be around.
Yes.
So the hyperactivity was dominating him. He was really physical. He's a sensory seeker also. So he hits a lot, and it's not even necessarily like when he's mad. He hits when he's mad too, but he'll hit to start a conversation. Yeah. Or he'll hit when he's excited. So yeah, like super young. I mean, we're talking less than 18 months. He's running away down the street, and we're having to chase him down. And we went camping one day, and I had on my step tracker, and I chased him around the campground. And one day I walked 10 miles chasing him around. That's and that was before he was 2.
Wow.
So lots and lots of energy. I mean, everybody knew that, like, Katie doesn't sit down ever because Adley doesn't stop. So it was super tough for sure. And then with him, it continued to progress into behavioral issues. So we had the hyperactivity. We had a lot of sensory things starting up. He became super auditory sensitive. So like you said, the hand dryers, fight or flight. Like he was terrified of them. We had to get him out of the bathroom before they went off. But the first sensory thing, or like auditory thing we noticed, was we have a diesel truck, and he was fine with it for the longest time. And then, like, all of a sudden, he was terrified of the truck. Like, he either had to be in the truck or in the house when it started, and to the point that he looked like someone was chasing him with a knife. When he'd see my husband coming with the keys, he would be like, get me the heck out of here. He was so, we had to like coach him, like, it's okay, buddy, we're gonna get you in there first. We won't start it. Like, he was terrified. The flushing toilets.
Yes, that's another one.
I always had to cover the sensors on the, like the auto toilets in the public restrooms. And then
I always wondered how people did that.
Post-it notes. Keep them in your purse. Put a Post-it note on there before
There
you sit.
you go. Okay.
There's your tip.
There's your tip. Woo!
Another one that we saw, and my dad actually got to see this when we went up to visit him, but you up by the cash registers, there's stuff again that a neurotypical family or a neurotypical person would never notice, but there's more people, there's more carts. Sometimes the cartwheels are clinking. There's all the registers going ding, 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 ding. There's people's car keys. There's candy. There's lights. Like, there's so much happening. And we'd get up there and Adley would literally flip. Like, I remember being shopping with my dad and him being like, what just happened? And he comes unglued. And you could see him, like, unraveling. Like, he was so distressed. It was tough to watch. And it literally would happen, like, it's almost like he crossed a threshold when you get close to the registers. Yeah. So that was, I mean, that was even before, like, we entered Crisisville.
Yeah.
We've been in Crisisville for a while. I feel like we're on our way out of there. Hopefully, knock on something that resembles wood.
I know. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so then definitely with him, the behavioral issues started up. So we started to have tantrums.
Yeah.
And they quickly became more than tantrums. I mean, we're talking, we called them blackout rages. At times it seemed like he was possessed by the devil, literally possessed by the devil. And I'll describe what that looked like, because for some of you might not know what that means. We're talking screaming and raging and beet red, sweating. His eyes would become super dark. They didn't even look like his eyes. And he would swear at us. Going back to 3 years old, he would swear at us, stuff that we could not figure out how these thoughts would ever get into a 3-year-old's brain. He had homicidal thoughts at one point, wanting to kill us and telling us where he'd put our bodies. Again, how does a 3-year-old ever harbor those types of thoughts? He would put holes in walls. He's broken 3 flat screen TVs. This was all before he was 3.5 years old, by the way. He would throw things at you. It was violent. And when he wasn't in these states, he's telling you he loves you. He's telling you you're beautiful. So it was really like Jekyll and Hyde. It was 2 different people, and it was the most terrifying thing ever to watch. 3 is just like this little,
they're
innocent,
like little magical beings
human
that are learning a little bit of independence, and like they're just these magical little sponges of creativity, and
his brain was just hijacked by chemical imbalances. It was. So my husband and I swore that there had to be something more than ADHD, and he's had multiple neuropsychs completed. And so right now we're sitting with the diagnosis for him of ADHD combined severe, anxiety severe. We went through phases where he thought bridges were collapsing from underneath us. He thought wood ticks were jumping out of the woods. Like, we took him on a walk, and it's one of the videos on my blog if you're someone who follows that, but he literally looks like someone's chasing him, and he was terrified. Like, he could not get home fast enough, and something triggered his anxiety. I still to this day don't know what, and I don't know if he did. It's just a feeling that happens. So he's got severe anxiety, and then he's got DMDD, which is disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. And basically what that means is he has massive feelings, and he doesn't know what to do with them. And typically when he has these massive feelings, his frontal lobe is pretty much vacant. He can't reason. He can't think himself out of these big feelings. He at times loses speech, and he goes back to baby talk. I mean, it really is like paralyzing big feelings. We've had him scream for autism multiple times, and despite us having big concerns that he could be like high functioning autism, we keep getting that it's really severe ADHD and really severe anxiety, and then the DMDD really pushes like the behavioral stuff, and that this anger is likely a defense to his anxiety. So he basically, what we've been told is he lives like he's on a war zone, and he's constantly hyper vigilant looking for the next threat. So with that said, like, he gets angry and aggressive physically and verbally to keep the dangers away, to try to keep people away from him so he can stay safe. So with Adley, we knew 8 or 9 months. Definitely. It was super early. He's now in occupational therapy, play therapy. He's been to mental health day treatment program, family therapy, chiropractic. He works with an energy healer. We've changed diets. We've done it all, and we're continuing to do it all. We found a medication combination that today is working great. We're having joy with him again, which we hadn't had in a really long time. So we're getting there, but we've had this before where it's gone well and then the wheels fall off the bus and the meds stop working. So I don't, we're not in the clear, but today is good. Today is good. And I think like a big part of raising neurodiverse kids is recognizing when you have a good day and staying in that moment.
Exactly.
And not trying to think about what might be coming, because we don't know.
You never know.
Especially this young, because they're changing so much.
And they're growing and they're developing. And also too understanding that a neurotypical person develops differently than the neurotypical. And so understanding that they're going to have some massive growth in one area. And they're going to have some lagging in the other.
Absolutely.
Being okay knowing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is massive.
So if you're someone who has concerns about your kiddo or a friend's kiddo or someone in your life, I hope that hearing just some of our examples of things that we've seen can at least like be enough to get your wheels turning, or at least give you ideas of what questions you maybe need to ask your care team, whoever that might be. And if you're not someone who has anybody in that like that in your life, and you just happen to think that our logo was cool and we looked like fun people to watch, which we are
for sure.
Hopefully this will just shine some light that like the kids in Target stomping their feet and throwing a fit aren't bad kids. They're not always bad kids not getting the toy. Mom's not always ignoring them because she just is too busy on her phone. Sometimes there's a lot more to the story, and just try to not be quick to judge whatever might be happening in front of you, because usually there's a whole lot beyond the cover of the book.
You just don't even see.
So like we said in the beginning, if you have questions, please comment so we can,
for sure,
we can talk more about that subject or that answer that question in our next segment. Check out our website. It's seemeneurodiverse.org. We're also on Instagram, See Me Neurodiverse.
And TikTok and all the social media platforms. So look for us. Subscribe to, if you are not, to our YouTube channel.
What did Adley say in the last one? Make sure you give it a big thumbs up.
I know, that was so cute.
And subscribe so that way you get notifications when we do videos.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.